Evan Kozlov is breaking down the history of tariffs in our country.
So I'm going to try and do the impossible, break down 250 years of economic policy on tariffs, and somehow make it interesting. Here's my source, economic professor Ralph Sonnenschein from American University. Let's start with the Founding Fathers. They were all about tariffs because, just think about it, they fought a war against the British complaining about taxation without representation. So taxing our imports rather than the people was an easy way to get around it. From there, the tariffs kept rising, and I want to tell you about one tariff in particular. It's the Tariff of 1828, and not everybody loved it. Northern states were in support because it would protect their industries, but the South hated it, calling it the Tariff of Abominations. In fact, South Carolina hated the tariff so much they tried to nullify the law. Imagine that, a state just ignoring federal law. In the end, President Andrew Jackson had to send the military in to enforce the tax. And that's the way it went for over 100 years. Southerners would take Congress and lower the tariff, and then Northerners would take over and raise it back up. But let's fast forward more than a century to 1930. That's when these two congressmen sponsored the now infamous Smoot-Hawley Tariff Act. It created a massive tariff of 60%, and this was happening at the same time as the Great Depression. So when did we end up turning away from tariffs? Well, economists say that wasn't until the end of World War II. That's when global free trade was all the rage. And in 1947, 23 countries, including the US, came together to create the GATT. That's short for the General Agreement on Tariffs and Trade. And immediately, tariffs started to be cut. Just look at this graph from the Department of Commerce. By the 1970s, tariffs were in the single digits. So what's the takeaway? It's this: tariffs are rare in the modern era, and that makes President Trump's actions unusual. But if you look at our long history, it's nothing new. Evan Kozlov, WUSA 9.